Ms. Sadiqa Lucas is one of the most dedicated supporters of education in the Philadelphia community. She works to bridge the gap between academics and home life. Her intricate and meticulous structure continues to render positive and inspirational results for the scholars and the communities in which they thrive. In the way she speaks and in all her actions, it is clear that to Sadiqa, education far exceeds the classroom. Her interpersonal skills extend not only to the students, but to their families as well. Day in and day out, Sadiqa makes home visits to ensure the students have the basic necessities. By finding new and effective ways to discipline, she makes certain that actions will not only be reprimanded, but also uplift and reinforce those qualities that make a well-rounded human being. This is a game changer for our youth, as Sadiqa focuses on her students as a whole person and strives to enhance their academic and mental well-being. She makes herself accessible 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This is a great tool in the prevention of suicide. She volunteers her time endlessly in her community. Sadiqa's tireless efforts to advance the youth in her community has also landed her the executive director position of the 5th school under her leadership. Sadiqa advocates for the community because it is her calling, not a job. We welcome Sadiqa Lucas to WMA and appreciate her spending time with us when she and her students are dressed for their special 1980s Day theme. Welcome, Sadiqa.
Hello, Ms. Lucas. I'm Jeremy, an 8th grader at Waldron Mercy. Welcome.
Good morning, Ms. Lucas. I'm Taya, an 8th grader at Waldron Mercy Academy. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Ms. Lucas, at what grade did you start at Waldron Mercy?
Kindergarten.
What are some highlights or special memories of your time at Waldron Mercy?
Some of the highlights would definitely be the recitals that we had, being in our costumes with the different themes depending on your grade. So definitely Christmas recitals. I remember we wrote appreciation letters to our parents for 8th grade graduation. I definitely remember making sure my uniform was perfect at that particular time. It was strictly enforced that we wear our uniform socks up to our knees. And, I don't know if it's the cool thing to do now, but we would wear shorts or boxers underneath our uniforms. Lots of community service, lots of can drives, lots of spirit days. Just every day was different. Every day was memorable.
Is there a particular teacher or coach at Waldron Mercy who inspired and influenced you? If so, in what way?
Sister Kathleen and Sister Marita Carmel. And I believe they were the kindergarten and 1st grade teacher. They were very, very strict. At that time, I didn't understand why I often heard my name and, the redirection. But now that I'm older, I understand that, when a teacher sees something special in you, they'll continue to push you. And then I thought it was continuing just to be on my back, but I see it now as, just encouraging me and just making sure that I don't fall off track. And I think now I see that as an educator, that you see something special in an individual and a student, and you just continue to push and encourage them.
That's great. She's Sister Carmel is still actually teaching here.
So, wow.
Yes.
Wow.
When you think about outreach and service at Waldron Mercy, what is one of your favorite memories?
Feeding the homeless. I think that's when I really realized that some of the things that I was taking for granted, eating dinner, having a warm meal. I realized that you have to give, and everyone doesn't, have a family dinner, have the time to sit at a dinner table, or can even afford food. So I definitely would say feeding the homeless and the can drives, definitely something that I took with me, and I learned to continue to give back to the community.
How did the mercy values instilled in you at Waldron affect who you are today as a person and in your professional life?
The biggest value that I took with me, and I continue to live, is not to just believe it, but you have to do it. I can't just sit up here and say, it's important to give back to the community, or, it's important to be a professional. You have to model it and you have to demonstrate it, and, just continue, when you feel like going left, just continue to remember that, we're not perfect.
Tell us about your work at Temple Hospital in the ER and how this involves spreading mercy.
Okay. I'm currently a trauma advocate for Temple University Hospital in the emergency department. And I mean, as you guys are aware, the violence in the city of Philadelphia is definitely on a rise. And the minute someone comes in, they need outreach, they need support. They're either fighting for their life or they need immediate attention. So at that particular moment, everything just stops, and, it's just a high paced density of, wanting to help, and then wanting to make sure that services are provided for the patient or the individual or the family. I think for me, giving back to the city of Philadelphia, where I'm from, as well as the community at a time like this, I think the most rewarding part for me is just being able to show up every day and, have that one family member who came in, who was fighting for their life, to hear from them months later and they're in therapy, or, things are turning around for the best. And I don't look for gratification, but those moments when families say, I don't know how I would do this, if there's a loss, I don't know how I would have, made it through the day without you, or things of that nature. They're definitely highlights. But in this particular profession, there's no like pat on the back, or, there's no accolades, that we're looking for. It's just coming in, getting the ground rolling, and reaching out and supporting those that enter the emergency room on a daily basis.
How is that different from your position at Excel Middle Years Academy?
Very, very different, but unique in some ways. So I started off as a teacher right out of college, and I taught for about 5 years, and then I went into administration. So right now, I believe this is my 7th startup. I have started up 7 schools in the city of Philadelphia. This particular one is a middle school. Very different, with obviously hiring and firing, budgets, forming teams, implementing discipline, implementing curriculums, overseeing all the administration and staff. But I think for me, comparing it to Temple, it's once again just some of the values that I learned at Waldron, just, giving someone a chance, and instilling some of the things that I learned in middle school to my middle school students about giving back to the community. And, anything in life worth having will not come easy. Without an education, it's just right now, it's just no way to survive. Education is just so important and so valuable. Definitely two different aspects of life: the emergency setting, the hospital setting, and then the Philadelphia school system setting. But ultimately for me, I'm really, really big on the community, and, just giving back to, students, families, just having outreach on a consistent basis.
Your philosophy of education is about educating the whole child, and I believe that education extends past the classroom. Please tell us more about that.
Obviously, in the classroom, you learn certain core values, you learn, the curriculum at hand, but also learning, life outside the classroom, life after school. For example, I'm sure in school, you might not realize, but it's important to take away some of the things that you learn in Waldron home, as far as, chores and when you clean up the classroom, respecting your parents, respecting your elders, respecting your peers. Definitely using what you learn on a day-to-day basis at home, and then vice versa, things that you learn at home from, your guardians, your parents, your loved ones, and then ultimately bringing it back to school as well.
How do you see yourself continuing to spread mercy in your life and in the lives of others?
I have this dream that I can save the world. I think that's why I started in education and then now in the hospital setting. I know realistically I won't be able to save the entire world, but I feel as I continue to educate young students and mentor, staff, I'll instill some of the values that, I received or I, added to my toolkit along the way. And then hopefully they will then in turn, make sure that they take the same perspective, and hopefully together we'll be able to eventually see a change in our world. I just have this dream of just saving, the world. And I feel like everyone deserves a chance, and everyone is entitled to make mistakes. And, it's all about, learning from your mistakes and where you pick up, and, it's where you're going, where you've been, and what you're doing now. Those are three things that I live by.
What advice would you give to the current students at Waldron Mercy?
Enjoy the moment. I can remember being in middle school, I can't wait to get to high school. I can't wait to, I want to go to high school. I want to be able to do some things like drive, and I want to be an adult. And then here it is now, I'm an adult, and I really wish I would have really enjoyed the time as opposed to rushing to being an adult. I also would, understand that right or wrong, weak or strong, it doesn't matter. The minute that someone doesn't have, especially an adult, doesn't have anything to say to you as far as redirection or, any sort of dialogue, that's the moment that an adult doesn't care. So at Waldron, constantly having, staff that would ask questions, ask if you needed anything, if we were walking on the wrong side of the hall, the redirection, that just allowed me to know that ultimately somebody really cared. And then, just planning for your future. I didn't realize how important middle school was, obviously, until I went to high school and then into college. But every year that you receive an education is, a pivot into your future, into your success.
Well, Ms. Lucas, thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Lucas.